I've said before many times that police should have their work and personal mobile phones checked regularly in order to prevent criminal acts between police and to identify any potential issues with the police constable before they become issues for the public. Now, my stance isn't about misogyny or racism. My issue is with prejudice towards everyone. My issue is with corrupt behaviour of any form. My issue is with police being hired without a suitable psychological assessment to determine whether they have NPD or other borderline personality disorders. However, although this guy is harping on about women and racism, which are only a small part of a much larger problem, it appears that my idea may have some merit after all. Now, I'm not for a moment suggesting it'll ever happen. By the way, it's just nice that it's not just me thinking about it. Lord Ian Blair, who was Metropolitan Police Commissioner between 2005 and 2008. This was the guy who said in an interview at 7:16 AM on the 7th of the 7th 2005 that the Metropolitan Police Force was the gold standard across the world for dealing with terrorism and had upped its game to work more closely with the intelligence services than anywhere in the Western world. And then, just 90 minutes later, the first explosion of 4 on that terrible day occurred on the London Underground. 50 seconds later, another explosion. 50 seconds later, another. And almost an hour later, a 4th explosion detonated, this time on a London bus. Now, let's be fair, that doesn't say much for his credibility now, does it? But he does agree with me, at least on one thing, although for slightly different reasons. Blair said in a recent interview with LBC that whilst misogyny has long been a problem within the Met, the emergence of secret social networks such as WhatsApp mean that people are no longer afraid of making sexist comments. He said, when I was a Met constable, it was a pretty sexist, racist organisation, but the idea that anybody would say what women need is a good slap is just inconceivable. Yeah. But come on, sometimes they just do, don't they? He went on, these social networks are entirely secret, and I think what's going to happen is that the Met will have to have a deal that people can randomly have their phones examined. By which he means the police, not members of the public. At the moment, that is, anyway. I'll play a couple of snips from the interview at the end of this video, but I think that people must agree that when you become the police, you do give up certain rights and privileges for other rights and privileges. Unfortunately, most of the new rights and privileges don't sit well with regular members of the public, including, in many cases, the plod's very own family, which is why the police lose the right to protect their own family should one of them break the law. I know that plod's family in many cases get well looked after, but in other instances, if plod fail to drop their family member in it, they could lose their job and police privileges, so being police is not compatible with being a regular member of the public. They are also in a position of extreme power and influence, and as such, without a proper regular psych examination, their newfound power and influence can and does easily go to their heads. Therefore, as one of the people who should be the most respected, most well-behaved, most law-abiding, we want to know that they are not compromised in any way that could adversely affect us individually or even our loved ones. So although some of you don't agree with me on this issue, I will stand by my conviction that police need regular checkups from the neck up. And in doing so, I think that needs to encompass their use of social media apps and messaging services. Now, of course, if a couple wants to send some raunchy pictures to their partner, then that's their business. I have no issue with that, and neither should the police. So maybe the police would have to register phone numbers of personal contacts and explain why that number shouldn't be checked for messages, such as, it's my wife and I send her dick pics. But then every other number or social media account message is fair game. Let's face it, police shouldn't be sending dick pics to other women if they're married anyway, and in doing so can lead to cops opening themselves up for bribery, etc., which is especially not good when you're a police constable. But as I say, for a position of such power, authority and influence, we must only employ the very best of society to fill these roles. And the current recruitment process fails to achieve this in every single way, whichever way you look at it. My point is that if there was mandatory phone checks for serving plod and police staff, then less of the wrong kind of police will apply to join, especially if it's made clear that there is a definite line between what's acceptable and what's not, such as I said previously, sending naughty pics to your wife or some raunchy messages, providing they weren't taken and sent whilst on duty, that is. Now, I do think this is an extremely controversial topic, so I really would like to hear what you have to say. So hit me up in the comments with your thoughts and your opinions on this, because these videos aren't just about me telling you what to think. This is about me sharing information with you, then my opinion, and getting feedback from you guys as well, creating that debate that we should have when we're discussing things.
We are in an era of social media. Let me just explain that when I became commissioner, I set up a commission about the experience of women as employees, as it were, of the Metropolitan Police. The only man who spoke to them was me for 20 minutes at the beginning. It was entirely run by women. There was no complaint about misogyny. When I was a constable, it was a pretty sexist, racist organisation. But the idea that anybody would say that what women need is a good slap is just inconceivable.
Because there's still a kind of discipline there.
But also because these social networks are entirely secret. And I think what's going to happen is that the Met will have to have a deal that people can be randomly have their phones examined.